Coming to you from inside that plastic orb from the 2001 comedy film Bubble Boy, I'm RJ Balde, and it's time to hash it out. The TRICHOMES Hash It Out podcast features conversations about trending cannabis topics. We'll also bring in industry insiders and influencers to discuss their point of view. In this episode, as a part of Convo 19, a special TRICHOMES series, I'll be talking to Kyra Reed of Markyr Cannabis and Women Empowered in Cannabis about the ways in which their communities, professionals, and companies are supporting one another through the coronavirus pandemic. We'll also talk about the advantages and obstacles that small online businesses face at a time such as this. Without further ado, here is my guest, Kyra Reed. My guest today is Kyra Reed, founder of the marketing and branding agency Markyr Cannabis. Kyra has been working in the social media marketing space since 2005 and has also launched the online community Women Empowered in Cannabis, which shares resources, provides support, and builds networks around the world with females who work in the marijuana industry. Kyra Reed, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, RJ.
No problem. Now, obviously, this is part of our ongoing TRICHOMES special coverage that we're calling Convo 19. We're talking about the overall coronavirus pandemic, how it's affecting everybody and how it's affecting specifically the cannabis industry. So first and foremost, how are you doing and how is your family doing?
I'm doing fine. My family is fine. We're in California and we locked down pretty early. We are all practicing social distancing, wearing masks, cleaning everything that comes and goes from the house. So we're good. No one in my family's sick, thank goodness. So we're all just trying to figure out how to have birthdays and holidays and kind of have some semblance of a normal family life in the middle of all this.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people. My birthday is in April, and I'm probably going to be having it through Zoom, or that's what the people are doing nowadays?
Yeah, we did a little Easter dinner on Zoom yesterday.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I'll probably change my background to make it like somewhere that I was supposed to be traveling, I assume, during my birthday. So it'll be all good. You know what I mean? I'll pretend I'm on a beach. Like I'll put like a fan in front of me.
Nice.
And, we'll do the whole thing.
Make a margarita.
Definitely.
Blow up palm trees.
Quarantini is what they're calling it.
I love it. I love it.
That quarantini. Yes, indeed. So I understand that it was through your branding agency, Markyr Cannabis, that you started Women Empowered in Cannabis, or the WEIC. Can you tell me a bit about how Markyr started and then the process of launching the WEIC from that?
Sure. So Markyr Digital has been in the consumer goods and tech space in social media since 2008. It's a long time, 12 years. And, I live in California. I was born and raised around cannabis. It's always been a part of my life. The people that raised me used it for medicine. So when we were approaching legality, as we were contemplating the first time around putting it on the ballot in California, I got much more focused on providing support around social and marketing to cannabis doctors and cannabis dispensaries. The feds came in and raided everybody in LA. And so everybody kind of pulled back on that. And then a couple of years later, when new 64 was going to pass, I jumped back in. When I did, I had been working with women in small business, teaching them how to use social media to be able to kind of empower themselves in their business online. So when I got into cannabis, I noticed immediately that there was this movement of women who recognized, wow, we have an opportunity unlike any other opportunity we've ever had in this country to be a part of building an industry from the ground up with a place for us in it, as opposed to trying to achieve some kind of success and power in an industry which had been built without us in mind. So it started to gather a lot of women around it. And a lot of these women were coming because of the fact that they had been affected by cannabis in a positive way. It had either saved their lives, they felt, or reversed epilepsy for their kids, or made it extended their parents' life. All of them were super deeply touched by how cannabis had made such a difference in their life, and they wanted to dedicate their lives now to getting the medicine out to the people. So what I realized was you have this combination of this movement that is drawing women to create something that they truly believe in. They have a deep, deep investment, emotional passion about. Um, but they don't have a lot of business acumen. And on top of the challenge of starting a business, no matter what industry you're in, now you have all of these other things that go on top of understanding a cannabis business that most people, I mean, I've met people who are in the industry who have no concept of what 280E is. And that's a dangerous, dangerous position for a woman to be in, to not know what she doesn't know. So when I moved over to cannabis, the first thing that I did was launch Caden Academy, which was, it's Turkish for woman. And I gathered other women who are professionals in the industry to help me teach women about the basics of business. And also, for instance, here's what you need to know to get your legal house in order for any business. Now, also, you're in cannabis. These are the things that you need to know. And I launched that in, I think it was 2016. And it didn't do well. And what I realized was that women they weren't at a place of wanting to be educated, because the perspective that I was taking was one I had taken in other industries, which was, let's build this, the dream life for you, right? Let's make this aspirational. If you take this course, you can have these things. And the reality was that, Louboutins and Caribbean vacations were not ringing the bell for these women. These women were here to save the world, and that was their most important priority. So how I was going about it was not correct. But what I'd ended up doing was starting this Facebook group in order to capture the women. I'm in social media. That's what you're supposed to do. Groups do not generally become very successful when they're attached to a product like that, but it was something we needed to do. So the women that I had gathered to help me with that course were all really influential and powerful women in the industry, and they invited their friends to the Facebook group. Well, starting out with the most powerful women in the industry saying, I'm going to be a part of this group, was amazing. And it ended up right place, right time. And I ended up having this community of women where they were talking honestly, they were sharing real information about what was happening in the industry. The women that were showing up were very anxious to help other women and very committed to building this women's movement. So over the course of 2.5 years, despite having a shadow ban on us, which basically means if you go to look for women empowered in cannabis, you're not going to find it. You have to know that we're there, and you have to have the link in order to access it, because Facebook doesn't want to encourage anybody to participate in it. So despite that, between three groups, we have a main group, we have a CBD and hemp group, and we have a supply chain focus group, and we have a group on LinkedIn. We have over 10,000 members.
Wow. What was the reason for the shadow ban? Did they ever give you a reason behind that?
Because we're associated with cannabis. We have the word
Oh,
cannabis
just
in our
because you're
name.
associated with cannabis.
Yep.
Oh.
And I can't even have as my URL on Facebook, Women Empowered in Cannabis. I had to change it to, I believe, a Z, because they will
Like,
not
oh,
even allow.
BIZ? Wow, really? Interesting. Now, Markyr is a digital marketing agency, and I imagine, like you said, a lot of your activity with the WEIC happens on Facebook and throughout your different avenues online. So, in what ways have you had to adjust your practices during the pandemic, if at all?
Yeah. So what we've done quite a bit is offline, in-person events. And I partnered with a company called Tokativity. And what they do is they have chapters around the world of women that spread education about consumption. And we have partnered, and we've done an event called Women Wednesday for the last 2 years at MJ Biz. And we have started what we call House of Jane, where at a conference, we get a house, and we invite women to come as a place to get respite from the conference room floor, a place where they can feel comfortable, they can consume and connect with other women. And these events draw about 200 people when we throw them, and they're awesome. They're a great place for women to meet each other, and business gets done at these events. So we were about to have one beginning of April at Hall of Flowers. And obviously that changed quickly. So my partners, Tokativity, they have an actual conference, an event platform with the technology to be able to invite a large number of people and have them network in different breakout rooms, et cetera. So we pivoted straight into an online event, and it went so well that we are now doing a 420 event where we're going to focus on, some cool things about what's happening now in research in cannabis. We're going to learn about some stuff that's happening with psychedelics. We really want it to be, usually our events are focused on mainly networking. But we want to, like, for me personally, I want to learn new things. I don't want the basics. I know the basics. I want to be among my peers and learning things that we don't know yet about cannabis. So that's really what we're focusing on for the programming. And then we also have the ability to have lots of breakout rooms and special sections and kind of like a conference online. Technology has really caught up. So it's a major way we've pivoted. We've also taken down, I was about to launch a membership platform for WEIC. I've taken that down until we're done. I have another company called Lady Jane Society, and we produce large scale events for women in the industry. We're having to put those events on hold. So, some of this stuff has gone into a holding pattern. Some of the stuff we've transitioned online. And then my business itself, I haven't been this busy in years. I have two clients that are launching different products right now. And they're a good fit for being alive, I guess, during COVID and working during COVID. But it's been a real transition. One of my clients is in the hemp industry, and obviously they're at the very beginning of the supply chain, and there's not a lot going on right now. In California, we way overgrew last year. So there's a lot of biomass and smokable flowers sitting on the market here. So there's a hesitation about, putting seed in the ground again. But this company is fully invested, and they have to continue keeping their doors open. So what we've done is we've pivoted from trying to make sales into using this time to build those relationships. How do we build relationships that actually will carry us through this, so that rather than, hi, I'm calling because I'm trying to sell you. Hey, I'm calling to check in. How's it going? What do you think about what's happening? And there are small sales that are coming from that process.
You said now that you are actually kind of ironically more busy at the moment. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yep.
How does that fare for you, like being more busy, but then also having to deal with the overarching cloud of anxiety that is like this pandemic that we're in? How do you balance those two?
Well, I start every day by reminding my husband how fortunate we are and how grateful we are that we both are working, that we have plenty of food, that we don't have any sick family members, and that we're not running out of money. We are okay. We can buy food, we could buy medicine, and that in and of itself is enough to set me straight that I need to just keep walking this path and pivoting as necessary and being flexible and agile, because I have the ability to do so, because my survival is not creating so much anxiety. So a lot of gratitude to start. Secondly, I will be honest, I have been waiting for the time that I can just enjoy my quarantine and putter around in my yard and clean out my closets and do those things. But it's hard because every 5 days a week, I'm still getting up and I'm working every single day, all day long, and not really having a lot of that mental health time to be able to process that this is a very scary experience, and it's getting scarier. We don't know how long we're going to be in lockdown. We don't know how many people ultimately will die. We're in a national trauma that none of us really know how to understand. And we know it's going to be different when we get out of it, but we don't know how. So, I mean, when I hear some people talk about things they're missing out on, I remind them, we're in this together. It's not just you that's missing your birthday. It's everybody that's having their birthday now.
Right.
It's everybody's missing their Seders and their Easters and the time with their families. We're all doing it. And there's something different about the fact that, and it's not just the US, the entire world is going through this experience
Hmm.
together. And I think it's more difficult when we lose sight of that and feel that it's just happening to us. It's not.
Yeah, there's definitely a weird sort of, you go from, personally for me at least, I go through moments where I feel that sort of collectiveness. We're all in this together. We're all suffering together. But then at the same time, it can be very easy to fall into a mentality of like, we're all self-isolating. So to fall into a mentality of I'm isolated and I'm alone, I feel like has been an issue for a lot of people as we've all been
Yes.
cooped up in our homes. So speaking of
Yes.
that, I understand are you the co-founder of the Lady Jane Society as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
and that is an event planning company for women working in the cannabis space. So
Yes.
I saw, like you said on Instagram, the Lady Jane Society announced that they're putting their plans for their next retreat on hold. So
Yep.
how important is it for you to have that in-person connection to a community of empowerment, and how important is it now to continue that connection online or through other means while we can't meet up in person?
For the mental health aspect of it, it's very important. Women in general, we love to be around each other.
Mhm.
We like to chat, we like to talk, we like to hug, we like to share. And that bonding time is, you can make relationships online, you can get to know people online, but there's something about that in person connection that closes the loop, that really makes people feel like this is my community. These people are my community. You are my people. And it's maintaining this in the virtual world has been really important. And we've looked at a lot of different webinars that are happening, kind of trying to understand, where is this direction going to go? What's the thing going to be that people end up really wanting to do?
Mhm.
And what I've done is I've surveyed my women, and I've found from them that the number one thing they want is to be able to network. They still want to be able to meet women from all over the country that may be able to provide them resources, answer questions, or people that they can help. So that hasn't gone away. And there's still a desire for that. And I think, we had a sesh during our last event on April 2nd. And we had about 30 women that stayed on to the very last moment with us. And several of them, as they were saying goodbye, said, "Thank you so much. I haven't been able to smoke with anybody except
Oh,
myself since we've been
oh,
doing this." And, it
wow.
was so good to meet new people and not feel like I'm just so isolated.
Aw.
So those things are, yeah, they're really important, just to give women the ability to just connect. Because I think it's, between myself and my husband, he doesn't need the amount of affection, right? I can't be around my nieces and nephews. So I have all these outlets for my hugs and kisses
Mm.
and bonding time. And we ended up getting a dog because he could no longer absorb my need for all that affection.
Wait, you got a dog because of the
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
I
And,
love that.
I had a dog for many years. I put her down over a year ago. I really wasn't interested in getting another dog, but now it's like, well, we're home. We don't know how long this is going to go on.
Sure.
I could use, an outlet for my affection that I don't get to pass around my family now. And, we took her out of a situation that wasn't great for her. And now she gets to be home full time with the
Yeah.
both of us. So, it's perfect time for her. So, I think we're all adjusting in our own ways. We're all figuring out how to maintain connections that are important to us. I think in a lot of ways, there are those that are trapped in bad situations in their homes,
Mm.
and I feel terribly for them.
Mhm.
Then on the other hand, you have situations where kids are finally getting the attention that they need from their parents. Families are coming together, people are spending more time understanding each other out in the fresh air, riding bikes and walking. And it's just, our society has just turned on a dime into this other experience that I really think a lot of us needed. We needed, I
Mm.
feel like COVID was Mother Nature saying enough.
Mhm.
Enough with the constant consumption, enough with the constant racing to the top, the buy, the do.
Mhm.
Stop, take a breath. Don't make everything about success and ambition. And we've never had in my entire life, even with 9/11 and even with the recessions and the stock market crashes I've lived through, it didn't stop life. This is the first time in my adult life that life has stopped and we have had to look inward as a society.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately this will be very healthy for a lot of people.
Yeah. I've been feeling similarly. I've had moments where I've felt like, you know what, this is obviously nobody wants to go through this, but there are valuable lessons that we can take away from it that I think that
Mm-hmm.
you just expressed very eloquently, that we
Thank you.
can take this as an opportunity for people to get grounded again. You know, I think we
Mm-hmm.
all have our heads up in the clouds very often, that it's important to be humbled at a certain point. I wish it wasn't through a pandemic, but sometimes people need hard lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what else would it be?
Right. Like what else
There's
could capture
nothing.
our
Yeah.
attention in the way that this has?
Nothing.
Definitely.
Nothing.
Definitely. Now, in an interview, you said that the internet sort of allows businesses to pivot on a dime because it's so low cost to start a business in the first place. So, in what ways does that versatility benefit you during a time like this? And then in what ways does being a smaller business pose its challenges in mitigating the effects of the pandemic?
So interesting, because when you set up as an online business, you have to learn how to use a lot of tools. There's a
Hmm.
lot of automation tools. There are, creating funnels and managing documents, that all takes place online. And one of the interesting things I'm experiencing is that one of my clients is not an internet business. So trying to get them up and automated on the most basic tools has been a real challenge. So I would say that for companies that started out on the internet, they're going to have a much easier time pivoting, because that's where all their business takes place. And
Mm,
that hasn't stopped, right? All those tools are still functioning.
gotcha.
So that's probably the best ability to pivot what you're doing. And the way that it affects the small business now is, so for instance, in my town, where we've had a shelter in place, we have many restaurants. We have probably 10 good restaurants in town.
Hmm.
Of them, 5 have said, were asked to close, so we closed. The other 5 have said, we're going to give curbside, we're going to do family style dinners, and you're going to be able to buy toilet paper and coffee and eggs.
Wow.
So, a business that's willing to pivot its attention, who's willing to look at its resources and say, how can I continue to survive in this time? How can I be of value to my community? If you're a gym, I don't know how you do that, right? If
Mm,
you're a fitness center, if you're a movie theater, I don't know how you do that. But there are other businesses that are finding ways to do it. And I think it's, when I've worked in the social world for a very long time, since the very, very beginning. And social media was a major threat to a lot of businesses, because they did not understand how to suddenly open up the world to seeing who they really were. And there was a lot of fear about how to manage themselves online. And there was a lot of fear about the fact that social would destroy businesses. And it did. It enabled some businesses to succeed, and it pushed others down. Those who refused to pivot, those who refused and said, I don't need social media, I don't need a website, I don't need those things, they have gone extinct.
mm,
So there are different experiences that put pressure on the economy and the business world to either pivot into change or become obsolete. So those that can pivot, those that look deep inside of themselves and say, how do we create a new experience for our customers, are the ones that will survive. But the ones that are just focused on sales and can't see beyond, those are the ones that will fail. It's one of those, let's see what you're made of. And I was listening to CNBC this morning, and they were talking about the stock market, and they were talking about bailing out huge corporations. And they had interviewed a guy who said, let the big guys fail, because there are small businesses across this country forever that when they don't manage their businesses the right way and something happens, they lose their business. The government doesn't come and bail them out.
mm-hmm,
So, why are we bailing out these huge, huge corporations that have not managed themselves well?
mm-hmm.
They're the only ones that get that benefit. So, we're living in interesting times. And if you have the ability to see a new way of offering value, you will continue to exist. And it's been that way in tragedy for a long time.
Yeah, because you've also said that as a branding professional, and you were talking about this just a second ago, it's important to know what the market wants, because then that way, like you said, you know how to pivot and in what ways to adapt to certain situations.
Yes. And the COVID, let me tell you, the
Yeah.
COVID situation is interesting because almost overnight, the whole entire country pivoted into a place of generosity.
Mm.
So there were absolutely nobody charging for webinars or any services. People were giving their services away for free.
Hmm.
And any commercials that were running that weren't acknowledging what was happening in COVID right now were getting attacked. So it was like all of a sudden the whole entire world said, no, now what's relevant is this. And this is the only thing that's relevant. And if you're not keeping up with this, then goodbye.
Right.
And now you see anything that you see on TV is in some way or another related back to COVID, even if it's just a hashtag in the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, definitely. And that would explain why I've gotten emails from every single company that I've ever interacted with in my whole life, letting me know that they're thinking about me.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And now, if you're not doing that, you become irrelevant, even though your
Yeah.
inbox is full of it. But if you haven't heard from them, hey, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, they must not care about my health during
Exactly.
this uncertain time, is what they're saying.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
since we're all staying indoors, physically isolated, perhaps feeling anxious, saddened, or angered about the news around us, when it comes to knowing what the market wants, what does the market want right now?
I haven't looked online yet. I can't tell you what it is today. Because it changes,
Yeah.
we're waiting. Is it going to be okay for us to sell tickets? Are we
Mhm.
going to seem totally irrelevant? Do we do it donation only? Is the world now feeling that we're not going outside and clapping our hands for everybody? Instead, we're complaining about how long till we can go outside. I don't know. It changes every day. That's why it's really important as a business that you look at your social. What are people saying that have follow you, that are considered your audience? Where are they at? And everything that I have advised my clients on in the past, I have to tell them, I don't know. Let's look at what today holds before we launch our social plan. We may have to pivot everything. If we hit a point where we're at 50, 60,000 people dead in the next few weeks, what kind of psychological impact is that going to have on us as a country? What are we going to be interested in talking about and not talking about at that time? I don't know. So every day we have to reevaluate where the world is at.
Yeah. And how is that, as someone who runs a business, how difficult is it to have a view of the future when you literally have to take everything by the moment during this time? How easy is it to make business plans for any sort of foreseeable future? You can't right now.
You absolutely can't. And it's interesting because for those of us who have been on a path of self discovery, we learned a long time ago that the present moment is where everything happens. Right. But in business, when you're trained in that business mind, you're always having to plan for the future so that you don't make mistakes from the past. Right. You're always trying to achieve more, more, more. But that also takes you out of the present. And right now, we're all forced into being in the present moment only. And I think that going along with what we were saying a few minutes ago about the health of the world improving because of this, because we're taking a break, that's also really key. We're just in the present. And it's interesting because, I said my husband and I, we watch the stock market. And it is so fascinating watching all of these experts weigh in, and they don't know, they have no clue. They have given up trying to say, well, in a traditional recession, in a traditional depression, you can't even look at those graphs anymore and assume that it has any relevance on today. So everyone is blind to what the future holds because we've never experienced this as a global experience before. Well, in 100 years, and how much life has changed in that 100 years. It's a completely different world. So it's where you just have to stay in the present right now because the future is anybody's
I'm just going to take a deep breath right now, take in the present moment.
guess. Just be in the now, Ram Dass.
Here we are. This is the
Yeah,
moment. Now,
this is it.
going back to the WEIC,
Hmm.
we can certainly see the ways in which advocacy for empowering women and pushing back against sexism and challenging gender stereotypes are breaking down walls brick by brick. But At the same time, we live in a country with a president who finds it apropos to make a joke about hooking up with models during a pandemic press conference, which I saw you retweeted recently.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
where do you stand? There is certainly, a monumental amount of work left to be done, but in your opinion, has it gotten better, and why is the work of the WEIC important now more than ever?
Yes, it's getting better as it's getting worse, right? So as we're advancing, we're losing more of our rights in our society, slowly but surely. We're still behind the curve in terms of dollar for dollar with men. But it's changing because women are moving into more positions of power. Women are feeling empowered to take the reins in a lot of ways that we haven't before. Hence, so many women winning in the last election and now filling the halls of government. But there is so much work still to be done because, well, for instance, I'll give you two scenarios.
Mhm.
One, a friend of mine works for a cannabis company. They have 0 females at the top. Their women are all in accounting, reception, PR, and marketing, right? Those are the divisions that women have been relegated to be the experts in. But the executive suite, none. Any kind of major decision maker outside of finance and marketing, none.
Mm.
So the whole team it's all men. And what they've done is created their boys club at the top, which it's not an intentionally sexist thing. It's not an intentional thing against women. It's what everybody's comfortable with, right? Guys started the company, guys hire the guys that they like, and next thing you know, you've got 10 men that all sit at the top. And how is a woman going to find her way into that space, right? Where they tell dirty jokes and they make fun of each, and there's this environment that's not really, I wouldn't want to hang out in that.
Right.
So it kind of perpetuates itself, right? And then when they do see women, they hire them into roles. And, I'm privy to, what goes on behind the scenes with this stuff. And so what goes on behind the scenes is they're not adequate enough. So they get fired. There's a ton of turnover, way more with the women than with the men. And then another scenario that is also not intentional, but also somewhat similar. I spoke with someone who was acquired by a Canadian cannabis company. And he said he watches the job board because he likes to kind of see what the company is doing. And there are several positions that continually open up every few months in the same companies. And they're traditionally positions held by women. And they're so hostile, those environments are so hostile towards women that they can't survive. So they keep getting this high turnover in those positions that are held by women. So we have a lot to do in changing the whole dynamic at an office to be more friendly, not just to women, but to people who are diverse from all spectrums,
Mhm.
whether it's your sexual orientation or your gender identity. There's a lot of room. There's a lot we need to change about bringing diversity into the workplace. And I lead the charge for women because that's the place I understand. I am not a Black woman. I'm not a disabled woman. I am not a veteran. And I'm not senior. I don't fit into these other categories. So where I focus my attention is on the category that I really understand while allowing and acknowledging all of these other subsets within women that also need to be included in this fight for more space for other views and other people to exist and to create an office environment and a corporate environment that isn't just either recreating your family dynamic or becoming a boys club at the top.
Mm.
So, again, the thing is that these things are not intentionally done. I do not believe that they go out and say, we don't want women. In fact, Facebook created an AI that would review resumes that they had to shut down because they ended up teaching themselves to be sexist. Not because I believe that the programmers were sexist, but because the way that we view the value of women in the workplace, the way we value characteristics and personality traits, what women put forward on their resumes is different than what men put forward. So the AI were trained to look for the things that men put forward and discount the things that women put forward, not based on sex, but based on how we value it in a resume.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So they had to shut it down. So these things, do not believe that there's this kind of mechanism of, we don't want women there. We're going to work against it. It's 100 years of business model
Mm-hmm.
that has been perpetuated in a way that is a man's game and not a women's game, which is why social media and the social world has opened up the ability for so many more women to start their own businesses, because traditional business is bottom line first,
Mm-hmm.
dollar first. With social led businesses, it's relationship first. And that's where we really thrive. And good relationships produce money. But if you're not focused on developing that good relationship, then you don't get to that other piece. So it's a pivot, it's a shift in how, that what is valuable to us, but we all end up in the same place, which is the dollars at the end. It's just, how do you get there? And for women, we're by and large more comfortable in the relationship as bottom line rather than dollar as bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates a very different value proposition.
Definitely. Well, I am incredibly inspired by the work that you do. I think that it's incredibly important to continue to advocate for a diversity of people, points of views, opinions, and beliefs in the workplace. I think that the more perspectives that you have in the idea room, the more equipped you will be to make these sorts of, what we're talking about, these pivots, and understanding your market and knowing, where to go and how to navigate certain fields. And so I think your work is great, and I think it's very important.
Can I answer the question about women empowerment? Because
Yes,
I didn't get
please.
to that, and I
Please
feel like
do.
that's really important.
Absolutely.
So it's a word that floats around all industries: empowerment, empowerment, empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I want to know, what does that really mean? And so I've looked at the difference between things that generally, funding women is empowering, mentoring women is empowering. Those are very difficult to impossible things for me personally and my group to be able to do. So we've had to look at other things. What empowers women? What empowers women is permission to stand in their power, permission to ask for the things that they want. And that permission comes from them. But when you struggle to give yourself that position, when you, because of life stresses, you fail to recognize that you need to give yourself that permission, you hold back. And so for me, empowerment is being there to say, hey, you can own your space. Hey, you can ask for what you want. Hey, you can go after what you want. It's okay. Hey, you can be angry and decide you don't want to work with that person. You don't owe them. Hey, it's okay to ask for the money that you have earned that you're not being paid. And having a community that backs you up on those things and says, yes, you can do that. And we're here to make sure that you can do that. And yes, that was not okay for someone to talk to you that way. This is the better way to be spoken to. And you don't have to put up with that if that's not the way you want to be treated. Those little things make such a huge difference in a woman's ability to stand in her power. And she doesn't always need it, but when she needs it, if she has a place that she can go to get it, it helps her to overcome massive obstacles. Just knowing she has that support, just knowing that she's validated in what she's thinking and what she's feeling. And when you have a community of women that you admire and that you trust and you believe in backing you up on this, it's just, you have eagle wings. You can suddenly fly. And when we had Lady Jane Society's event in October last year, we had Miss Kindness as our MC, and she's just amazing. And she led off by telling it, giving everyone permission to ask for what you want. And a week after that event, I was at another conference, and I had 3 women come up to me and say, you know what? I walked away from that event and I've asked for what I've wanted this week and I've gotten it, and I feel empowered.
Ooh,
Like,
I love
that is why I do what I do.
Yeah, I love that. What are you asking for right now, Kyra?
What am I asking for? Boy, that's a good question. I honestly feel like at this moment, at this point in the world, I've got everything that I need. What I want is, I want our nurses and our doctors to have the PPEs they need. Mm-hmm. I want people to obey the shelter in place so we can flatten this curve and we don't have to lose people that we love. I want us to come together as a society and support taking care of each other and supporting social safety nets again. And I want the people that are suffering the most to get help.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. Absolutely. Now, before we go here, where can our listeners go to find the WEIC, to find Markyr, to find all of that?
So Markyr is markyr.com.
Mm-hmm.
Women Empowered in Cannabis, you can actually go to our website, womenempoweredInCannabis.com, and find the way to click through to get access to all of our Facebook groups, because we do have a shadow ban. And also on LinkedIn. And you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook, Kyra Reed.
Right on. Well, awesome. Kyra, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yes. Oh, also on LadyJaneSociety.com.
Yes, LadyJaneSociety.com. And they're on Instagram too, as well.
Yes. And join us for our 420 party. It is going to be a sliding scale donation. We are going to have networking with women across the world. We are going to have some really fun speakers. We're going to have giveaways. It's going to be a fun party. We're going to have a big sesh, smoke sesh. So please consider joining us. Go to House of Jane, HAUSofJane.com.
Nice. 420. I'll be there.
Yep.
Right on. Looking forward to it. All right.
Thanks so much, RJ.
Yeah, you're welcome. Stay healthy out there.
You too.
My thanks again to Kyra Reed for joining me. If you are a member of the cannabis community and have a story you want to share with us, we would love to hear from you. You can reach the show at hashitout@trichomes.com. You can help others find the show by taking a moment to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. You can also join the discussion with industry insiders and get your voice heard by joining the community at trichomes.com and following us on all social media. Hash It Out is produced by David Fortin and presented by trichomes.com. I'm RJ Balde. Thanks for listening.